Hello and welcome back to EC Angling. In this episode we're going to take a look at the Cream Seed range from Munch Baits. It is an excellent bait, probably one of my favorites of all time, and we're going to run through a few of the products that I have here. I don't have all of them, but I got a lot of them, and so you can get a close-up look at what they look like. If you watched my last video about the Ronnie rig, spinner rig, that fish that I showed in there, that 28-pound fish with the rather interesting tail, was caught on a 18mm Cream Seed pop-up. So we're going to dive right in and just take a quick look at the different items I have, so you can have an idea if it might be something you want to try. First thing we're going to take a look at is the Cream Seed pop-ups that are the washed out color. They come in kind of a natural color as well, which is identical to the bottom baits. And then they come in this nice selection of washed out colors as well. So there's some pink, yellow, and white. Not super bright, but plenty bright enough. And if you're fishing for wary fish that have seen it all before, might be just the thing you need to convince them that it's safe to eat this. These are the 14mm baits. They also make an 18 currently, and they are super buoyant, so make sure that you test your rig in the margin or in a bucket or whatever to make sure that it's not floating in a way that you didn't expect, because these things will float exceptionally well. You could easily use them on zig rigs, easily use them on much larger hooks than you might otherwise think to use, which I find gives a really good hookup. So something to bear in mind when using these. It says pop-ups, and they are pop-ups. They float great. They're also a nice firm consistency. They're not super hard, but plenty hard enough to be hair riggable or any sort of piercing you want to do on them. They are not brittle particularly, so some pop-ups I've had have kind of tended to want to split or whatever, especially if you use a larger needle or try and pull through a piece of monofilament or something like that. These aren't susceptible to that, so you can use whatever kind of attachment you want and it'll work great and stay on there just fine, even with some nuisance fish and whatnot. Works well on a bait screw as well. Will stay on. It's a good consistency for that. So that is the pop-ups. Again, they're available in this washed out color or a natural color that looks identical to the bottom baits. So that is the pop-ups. Next thing I'm going to take a look at is the Wafters. Now these are round and look identical to the bottom baits. Same consistency as the pop-ups, but just a minor amount of buoyancy to offset the weight of the hook. They do float in the water, so they're not like a wafter that's not really a wafter. You can see they have lots of bits of seed and stuff in there, and are, as I said, identical to the bottom bait. So a perfect way to present a slightly more neutrally buoyant rig on the bottom. One thing I will add about all these baits is the flavor profile is extremely sweet. So it has the ingredient talon in it, which is just about the sweetest ingredient, if not the sweetest ingredient known to man in it, which makes these baits have a really kind of candy sweet smell to them, which has proved irresistible to fish here in the United States that many of whom have never even seen a boilie ever before, but they immediately recognize the flavor of these Cream Seed boilies as something that they want to eat. So Wafters, available in 14, which I have here, and 18 as well, and are a great way to offset the weight of your rig if you want to fish with a bait that matches perfectly the bottom baits. There is also dedicated hook baits, and these are extra hard, rock hard baits for use on the hook. They come glugged in a Cream Seed liquid food, basically, and these baits, they're slightly sticky, slightly gooey on the outside, and they are super hard. Again, super sweet, and resistant to just about any sort of nuisance species. Even catfish and turtles and things have a hard time dealing with these and getting them off the hair. So very good bait to have in your arsenal. The smell is the wonderful cream seed smell, so you know that the fish are going to love it, or at least the fish here are going to love it. And you can fish rest assured that it will stay on there, and you don't have to worry about it coming off or anything like that. So also the boosted smell, obviously, because they are slightly gooey, and in the liquid food here makes them ooze attractant a little bit more, and they will attract the fish in really well. To complement everything here and give everything a little bit of a boost, or add to a PVA bag or stick your sticks in or something like that, is a liquid food. Similar ingredients to all the other baits, and as you can see, I don't know how well you can, yeah, I can make a mess here. This stuff is super sticky, and this jar is large enough that you could stick a PVA stick down in there, no problem, if you wanted to dunk it in there, or just add a little bit to a solid PVA bag or something like that. If I was going to inject it into a solid PVA bag, it is probably a bit thick for that, at least for my syringe. So I would cut it with something probably just to give it a little bit of thinner consistency. Probably made just some corn syrup or something like that. Nothing that's going to alter the profile of it too much, just make it a bit thinner to get into those bags. Great for drizzling over baits. You could mix a little bit in with particles to give them the same smell if you want to. Use it pretty much any way you could imagine, honestly. You know, you can glug the other baits in it, glug the pop-ups in it. Great thing is stick a pop-up in here, get it nice and gooey, and then roll it around in some of the stick mix, which I'll show you in just a moment, and that will make a nice super high attract hook bait. So another great thing to have in your arsenal. Here we have the stick mix. I'll open this up and show you the consistency. Basically, if you look at the ingredients, they're printed pretty small on the package, but they are there. All the ingredients are there, so you know it's what you're getting, which is nice. Sometimes it's a bit confusing about maybe what's in the bait. People don't want to tell you, or companies don't want to tell you. So this tells you what's in there, which is super nice, and lets you know that it really is a super high quality product. The stick mix is no exception. Identical flavor profile to the other items I've mentioned. See if we can get the bag open. Yep, opens nicely. Over to some of the mess. And so we have a slightly moist stick mix. It's got a ton of crushed hemp in it, it looks like. Other sort of little flecks of particles and things like that. It is slightly moist. When I squeeze it, it will hold together, so it's going to break down really nicely on the bottom. The other high-vis ones that I've done so far, check them out if you want to see kind of what it looks like it would break down like. I think this will break down the same, but obviously it's not designed to be a high-vis bait. It's certainly more of a food bait than the other ones. Although the other ones on the high-vis range are excellent food baits. They have plenty of protein and stuff like that in them, unlike some of the other high attract baits you'll see on the market, so no need to worry there. Great little stick mix. Let's see here. Put that to the side. What we've actually got in here. I'll read you the ingredients. Ground cereals, ground hemp, whey protein, dextrose monohydrate, salt, Cinnamaldehyde. That is an interesting. I don't know exactly what that is, but it's probably a cinnamon. It's got vanillin, talin, and some other ingredients, sugar syrup, flavoring compounds. It is 16% protein, so pretty good for a stick mix. And you can see all the hemp in it. Let me see if I can get this up closer. If it'll zoom in. Nice. So you can see all the different particles in there. Lots and lots of hemp. I would quite gladly fish this over a bed of hemp. Actually, there's so much hemp in this. So, again, excellent looking bait. Alright, now, last but certainly not least is the mainstay of the cream seed range, which is, of course, the bottom boilies, bottom bait boilies. I have the two that are currently available right now. I've heard some rumor that there might be some 22 millimeters coming out at some point. Maybe. Be nice. I'd like that. Currently, 18 and 14 millimeter are available. And honestly, this does work pretty well for most of the time for my fishing. Sometimes I would like something a little bit bigger, simply to try and cut down on the amount of nuisance species that we've got going on. So, let me open these up. Let's see here. Didn't have to use my teeth, so that was nice. These are the 18 millimeter baits here. And we'll contrast those with the 14 millimeter. You can see these 14 millimeter look identical basically to the 14 millimeter Wafters. Right here. Got a Wafter on the left. It's a little bit drier. The Wafter is, so it makes it a little bit harder and a little bit smaller. But you can see, if it'll focus, that they're basically, you can't tell them apart. So if I was to mix them in, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. The 14s, honestly, you don't see a whole lot of 14 millimeter baits, or at least I don't. You normally see like a 16 or something like that. So they feel fairly small. They take the place of a 12 millimeter, I think, pretty nicely. 18s, again, are an 18, and you do see those fairly commonly. Super nice baits. The smell is hard to describe. It's super, super sweet. It is a little bit creamy, and I honestly have a hard time describing it. It's not particularly fruity at all, but you definitely notice the sweetness. You just have to buy a bag and smell them. They smell delicious. The ingredients on these are ground cereals, toasted soybean flour, egg products, whey protein, dextrose monohydrate, ground hemp seed salt, cinnamaldehyde, vanillin, talon, and then a few other ingredients which I can't pronounce. You just have to get the bag and see. Crude protein's 32.23%, which is perfect for carp. You generally want it around 35 plus or minus, so these will work great. Fat's 6.45%. Perfect bait, really, and they really do get the fish going. Cannot emphasize that enough. Crack one of these open so you can see all the delicious particles in there, all the hemp. It's just a creamy hemp boilie, super sweet creamy hemp boilie. What could possibly do better than that? My plan, and I have fished over particles and things like that. Obviously, hemp's a no-brainer to fish with these. You can use some of that liquid food when you're cooking up your hemp to make it all kind of smell similar, and it's just absolutely perfect. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below if you have and haven't already done so. I really appreciate it, and it will help me to continue to produce these videos at a regularly consistent interval. If you got any questions, put them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on EC Angling.
Sort of like strawberry to me.